You're waiting for that magical moment when you'll finally feel like doing the thing. You know the thing, that project you've been putting off, that skill you want to learn, that habit you swear you'll start tomorrow. You're waiting to feel motivated. And here's the problem with that. You're going to be waiting a long time, maybe forever. Because motivation, that feeling of being fired up and ready to conquer the world, it's a lie. Well, not a lie exactly, but it's not what you think it is. It's not some renewable energy source you can tap into whenever you need it. It's more like a lightning strike. Brilliant, powerful, completely unreliable. And if you're building your life around waiting for lightning to strike, you're in trouble. Let me show you what's actually happening in your brain when you think you're motivated, and why the people who get stuff done, they're not relying on motivation at all. Okay, so first things first. We need to talk about what motivation actually is, because most people think of it as this force, this energy that drives you forward. Like, if you could just find enough of it, you'd finally get your life together. But that's not how it works. Motivation isn't a thing you have or don't have. It's a feeling, a temporary emotional state triggered by very specific chemical reactions in your brain. Let's zoom into your brain for a second. There's this tiny region in there called the ventral tegmental area, the VTA for short, and it's basically your brain's motivation factory. When something good happens, when you experience pleasure or accomplish something, or even just anticipate something rewarding, the VTA releases dopamine. Dopamine, you've probably heard of it. It's the feel-good chemical, right? The reward molecule. Except that's not quite right either. Dopamine doesn't make you feel good. It makes you want things. It's the anticipation chemical. The maybe if I do this, something awesome will happen chemical. And here's where it gets interesting. Your brain releases dopamine when you expect a reward. When you think about how great it'll feel to finish that project. When you imagine yourself finally getting in shape. When you picture the satisfaction of learning that language you've been talking about for 3 years. That feeling, that surge of excitement and possibility, that's dopamine. That's what we call motivation. And it feels amazing, doesn't it? Like you could do anything. Like you're finally ready to change your life. But here's the thing about dopamine. It's designed to get you moving, not keep you moving. It's the start signal, not the fuel. And it fades, always, without exception. It fades. Think about the last time you felt super motivated. Maybe you watched an inspiring video, or read a great book, or had a conversation that fired you up. You probably thought, this is it. This time I'm really going to do it. How long did that last? For most people, a day, a few hours, maybe even just minutes before reality sets in and your brain's like, okay, but this is going to be hard and I'm tired, and maybe we should just watch TV instead. That's not weakness. That's biochemistry. Your dopamine system isn't built for sustained motivation. It's built for short bursts of drive aimed at immediate rewards. Let me show you how this played out in evolution. Imagine you're one of our ancestors, wandering around looking for food. You spot a berry bush in the distance. Your brain releases dopamine. Boom, instant motivation. You feel driven to go get those berries. That surge of motivation gets you moving, helps you overcome the effort and risk involved in walking over there. But once you've got the berries and eaten them, the dopamine drops, the motivation evaporates. And that's perfect, right? Because you got what you needed. Time to rest and conserve energy until the next opportunity. Your brain is still running that same system. It's still optimized for immediate rewards. Find food, get reward, dopamine surge, feel motivated. Eat food, reward obtained, dopamine drops, motivation gone. But the modern world doesn't work like that. The things we want now, career success, fitness, skill mastery, meaningful relationships, those don't give immediate rewards. They require sustained effort over weeks, months, years, and your dopamine system just wasn't designed for that. So you get motivated to start. You join the gym, you open the textbook, you start the project, and then a few days later, the dopamine's gone. The motivation's evaporated, and you're left there thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stick with anything? Nothing's wrong with you. You're just waiting for a feeling that isn't coming back. Here's where people make the biggest mistake. They think the solution is to get more motivated, to find that inspiration again, to watch more videos, read more quotes, get themselves pumped up. And yeah, that works for about 20 minutes. Then you're back to square one, chasing the dragon, trying to recreate that initial high. It's like trying to run a car on nothing but the initial spark from the ignition. That spark is important. It gets the engine started. But you need gas to actually go anywhere. You need a system. That's what discipline is. It's the gas. It's the system that works when the spark is gone. Let's talk about discipline, because I think people misunderstand this too. They think discipline means being some kind of superhuman who never struggles, never wants to quit, just powers through everything with an iron will. That's not what it is. Discipline isn't about being strong. It's about being systematic. It's about building processes that work regardless of how you feel. Think about brushing your teeth. You do it every day, right? Even when you're tired, even when you don't feel like it, even when you're sick or sad or stressed. You just do it. Not because you're motivated to brush your teeth. Nobody wakes up excited about oral hygiene. You do it because it's automatic. It's part of your routine. It's a system. That's discipline. It's turning the things you want to do into things you just do. No feeling required, no motivation needed, just habit, process, system. And here's the crazy part. Once you build the system, motivation becomes irrelevant. Actually, it's better than irrelevant. The system starts generating its own momentum. Let me show you how this works at the neural level, because it's actually pretty wild. When you first start a new behavior, let's say you decide to exercise every morning, your prefrontal cortex has to do all the heavy lifting. That's the part of your brain responsible for decision-making, willpower, executive function. And using your prefrontal cortex is exhausting. It's metabolically expensive. Your brain hates it. So every morning you have this internal battle. Your prefrontal cortex is like, we should exercise. And the rest of your brain is like, or we could stay in bed because that's warm and easy. And you have to consciously force yourself to get up, to make the decision, to exert willpower. This is why motivation feels so important at the beginning, because you're trying to overpower your brain's default settings using pure willpower. And willpower is a terrible, unreliable resource. But here's the beautiful part. If you keep doing the behavior consistently, doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter if you're motivated, your brain starts building new neural pathways. It starts automating the process. The behavior gets transferred from your energy-hungry prefrontal cortex to your basal ganglia, which handles automatic behaviors. And once that happens, you stop needing to decide. You stop needing willpower. You stop needing motivation. You just do it. It becomes as automatic as brushing your teeth. The system takes over. This is why successful people always say the same thing about discipline. They don't talk about feeling motivated. They talk about showing up, about consistency, about doing the work whether they feel like it or not. It's not because they're better than you. It's because they understand something fundamental. Feelings are irrelevant to outcomes. Your feelings don't care about your goals. They're just biochemical reactions optimized for survival in an environment that doesn't exist anymore. You know what does care about your goals, your actions, your systems, your habits. You can feel unmotivated and still exercise. You can feel uninspired and still write. You can feel exhausted and still show up. And every time you do, you're building the system a little bit stronger. But okay, let's be real for a second. This sounds great in theory, right? Just build systems, ignore your feelings, become a productivity robot. Except, we're not robots. We're humans with emotions and energy levels and bad days and stress and all kinds of stuff that makes just be disciplined feel impossible. So, how do you actually do this? How do you build these systems when motivation is unreliable and willpower is limited and you're basically fighting your own brain? Here's the trick. You don't fight your brain, you hack it. Remember that dopamine system we talked about? The one that gives you motivation in short bursts aimed at immediate rewards? You can use that. You can design your systems to work with your brain instead of against it. Small wins, immediate feedback, incremental progress. Let's say you want to write a book. That's a huge goal, right? Months or years of work. Your dopamine system looks at that and goes, "No thanks, too far away, too abstract. I'll pass." So you never feel motivated to start. But what if you reframe it? What if instead of write a book, your goal is write for 15 minutes today? That's achievable. That's immediate. Your brain can handle that. And when you finish those 15 minutes, boom, tiny dopamine hit. Sense of accomplishment, progress. Do that every day. And after 6 months, hey, look, you wrote a book. But you didn't do it through motivation. You did it through a system that gave your brain small, consistent rewards. This is how you game your own biochemistry. You set up your environment to make the right behavior easier and the wrong behavior harder. You create immediate consequences, good or bad, for your actions. You build in accountability. You track progress. You celebrate small wins. You're basically tricking your dopamine system into supporting your long-term goals by breaking them down into a series of short-term rewards. And the wild thing is, it works. Not because you become more motivated, but because you stop needing motivation at all. There's another piece to this, though, something people don't talk about enough: the role of identity. See, when you're relying on motivation, you're essentially saying, "I'll do this thing when I feel like doing this thing." Your behavior is dependent on your feelings, but when you build a system, when you develop discipline, you start to change how you see yourself. You stop being someone who wants to exercise and become someone who exercises. You stop being someone trying to write and become a writer. The behavior becomes part of your identity. And once that happens, it's not even a question anymore. It's just what you do, because it's who you are. This is the deeper transformation that discipline creates. It's not just about accomplishing goals, it's about becoming the kind of person who accomplishes goals. About building an identity around action rather than intention. Let's zoom out for a second and look at what this means on a bigger scale. Because this isn't just about personal productivity. This is about how humans actually achieve anything meaningful. Every major accomplishment in history, every scientific breakthrough, every work of art, every social movement, every business success, it wasn't built on motivation. It was built on systems, on people showing up day after day, even when they didn't feel like it, especially when they didn't feel like it. Mozart didn't compose masterpieces when he felt inspired. He composed every single day, because that's what composers do. He had a system. Scientists don't make discoveries in moments of motivation. They run experiments, collect data, analyze results, repeat, for years, often for decades, most of which is boring, tedious work. They have systems. Athletes don't become champions when they feel motivated. They train every day through pain and exhaustion and setbacks. They have systems. The myth of motivation makes us think that successful people must have some special feeling, some inner fire that drives them. But talk to any of them, and they'll tell you the truth. Most days they don't feel like doing the work. They do it anyway, because they have systems that don't depend on feelings. Here's maybe the most important thing, though. Waiting for motivation isn't just ineffective. It's actually harmful. Because every time you wait for motivation to do something, you're reinforcing the pattern. You're training your brain that action requires a special feeling first, and your brain learns. It gets really, really good at not giving you that feeling. Because why would it? Motivation is metabolically expensive. If your brain can keep you inactive by just not releasing dopamine, that's way more efficient from an energy perspective. So the more you wait for motivation, the less motivated you become. You're literally training yourself to be less capable of taking action. The solution is to break that pattern, to take action without waiting for the feeling, to prove to your brain that you don't need motivation to move forward. And you know what happens when you do that? When you consistently take action regardless of how you feel, your brain starts to adapt. Those neural pathways get stronger, the behavior gets easier, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the motivation actually shows up. But now it's following your action instead of preceding it. You're not motivated, then you act. You act, then you become motivated. It's backwards from what we think, but it's how it actually works. Looking at this from a different angle, maybe motivation isn't the enemy here. Maybe we've just been thinking about it all wrong. Motivation is great. It's beautiful, actually. Those moments when you feel fired up and inspired and ready to take on the world, cherish those. Use them. They're gifts. Let them carry you as far as they can, but don't depend on them. Don't build your life around them. Don't wait for them to save you. Build systems that work on the other days. The 95% of days when you don't feel motivated, when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you'd rather do literally anything else. Build systems that work then, because that's when it matters most. That's when discipline actually means something. Anyone can work when they're motivated. The question is, can you work when you're not? And here's the beautiful irony of all this. Once you stop chasing motivation and start building systems, once you develop real discipline, you actually start experiencing more motivation. Not because you're trying to feel motivated, but because you're accomplishing things. You're making progress. You're proving to yourself that you're capable. And that generates its own kind of motivation, a deeper, more sustainable kind, not the flashy, unreliable lightning strike of the dopamine surge, but the steady, renewable energy of self-efficacy, of knowing that you can do hard things, of trusting yourself to follow through. That's the real reward, not the feeling of motivation, but the identity of someone who doesn't need it. So what does this mean for you? For your goals and dreams and all the things you keep telling yourself you'll do someday when you finally feel ready? Stop waiting. That's it. That's the whole message. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop waiting to feel like it. Stop waiting for the perfect moment when everything aligns and you're finally in the right headspace and the conditions are ideal. That moment isn't coming. Or it'll come and go so fast you'll miss it. Or it'll come and carry you for 2 days and then abandon you right back where you started. Build a system instead. Make it stupidly simple at first. So simple that you can do it even on your worst day. Then do it. Every day. Regardless of how you feel. Not forever. Just today. And then tomorrow just do it again. Just today. That's discipline. It's not dramatic. It's not inspiring. It's not going to make a great movie montage, but it works. When motivation fails, and it will fail, discipline keeps going. The system keeps running. You keep moving forward. And 6 months from now, a year from now, you'll look back and realize you accomplished something real. Not because you felt motivated, but because you didn't need to. Because you built something more reliable than a feeling. You built a system. You built discipline. You built a version of yourself that takes action regardless of the weather in your head. And that's worth more than all the motivation in the world. Motivation is a myth. Not because it doesn't exist, but because it doesn't matter. Not really. Not in the long run. What matters is what you do when it's gone. What matters is the system you build. What matters is showing up. The rest is just feelings, and feelings pass. But systems last.